Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Write an Adventure, our ongoing live stream where we are creating a full campaign in real time, including our own custom made domain of dread. This is an interactive live stream where you can jump in with your thoughts, comments, questions as we go along. In fact, I encourage it. Your own ideas are some of the best ideas that we've come up with, I think, in here. Uh, so far. And so this is our Wednesday stream, so it's a little bit shorter than our Monday stream, where on Monday we do a full hour of this. On Wednesdays we do about a 30-minute little prep period for this. So without any further ado, why don't we go ahead and jump into this? So let me go ahead and share my screen. We'll get a little recap of what we've done so far and where we're picking up this time. So, as I mentioned, we've created our own, or we're working on creating our own custom domain of dread, right, for as part of this campaign. And so we've done a little bit of work in terms of the world building that goes into this. We've created an initial adventure, and that would be one where the characters are kidnapped and briefly enslaved, and they have to escape. And in doing so, they learn of the existence of a lost artifact that can give the wielder incredible power over the domain and suggests to them that this artifact is, in fact, their best way of escaping this domain of dread as a whole. Additionally, uh, we've done a little work on our first landing village, our town. We're calling Darkport, and we fleshed that out. We've given that a little bit of life to it, including some factions and some notable places, and done some brainstorming for that. And so now we are working on building out the part of the adventure where the characters, the PCs, have escaped their servitude and are now trying to locate this artifact for themselves. And so we built out a bunch of clues to go along with that, a bunch of, or I should say, a bunch of places that the characters can go to search out and seek out clues to the location of the artifact and have these places lead them to each other. And we can build a multi-layered mystery story without the possibility of our characters overlooking something important because there's multiple ways to get to each clue or each investigative scene. And so now that we kind of have a brief outline of that, we are getting a little focused here and working on one of them in particular. We have one where the characters are have a lead where they become aware of a treasure hunter that has some information about the artifact they're looking for, and they want to go find this treasure hunter and get that information. But said treasure hunter is out in the field doing their own investigations, and they're deep in within a dungeon environment, and the characters have got to go in there and find them. And so, since these are smaller investigative kind of scenes as opposed to each one of these being a full fledged adventure, we're using a compacted adventure structure to build this because we still want to have a dungeon environment for the characters to explore and some traps and puzzles for them to get to overcome because that's the conflict of them trying to get the information or I should say, it's part of the conflict of them trying to get the information from this treasure hunter. The rest of the conflict being that the treasure hunter doesn't want to give up the information. And so we're building working on building a little 5-room dungeon for fourth level, or I should say, for 4 second level characters. And we very briefly got into that last time, where we kind of laid out our outline here with the basic tenets of a 5-room dungeon. Um, and then started coming up with a bank of possible creatures with which to stock it, and did a little bit of work laying out what the XP budget we would have for the BBEG would be, and that sort of thing. And so, done a very little bit of work on this so far. And so now today, I think with the time we have allotted, we're going to go ahead and start kind of fleshing this out. Again, this is uh, an investigative scene, right? The idea being that this is maybe a session's worth of adventure is maybe kind of what we're trying to create here because this is going to connect very rapidly to other portions of the story as the characters find clues and move through. We're not looking to create a Tomb of the Nine Gods kind of deal from the Tomb of Annihilation or a Tomb of Horrors kind of deal that is a full adventure in and of itself. So why don't we go ahead and start fleshing this out? We came up with a premise that this is the dungeon is the ruins of an ancient outpost that fell when Ovander, who is our elemental villain, sort of the Strahd, if you will, of our domain of dread, um, came to power. When Ovander came to power and is now home to a host of elementals and undead, we thought that would be kind of a cool pairing last time. So, as always, if you have your own thoughts and ideas as we go through this, jump in the chat, let me know. You guys are incredibly creative. One, you come up with some amazing stuff yourself, and two, you do a tremendous job of kind of sparking my own creativity. So please feel free to share your ideas as we go along here. Um, so, one of the things that I like to do when I'm doing something like this from complete whole cloth and from scratch is work with the parts that I know first, the things that I have in my head. And so I already have kind of this vision for the BBEG and for the reward stashed away in there because I have this image of you have this treasure hunter, this person who's trying to find the artifact themselves, and so they don't necessarily want to give up their lead. They want to get the artifact. They don't want somebody else to get the artifact, right? So I have this thing in mind where the characters come, finally link up with the treasure hunter just as they all come face to face with the big bad evil guy, our boss battle of this dungeon, um, and they end up in this situation where they, one, have to defeat the bad guy, but two, they've got to protect the treasure hunter because they've got the information that they need. And three, we have the treasure hunter who is more than happy to let the characters die on their behalf because, well, then he doesn't have to lie to them if they're already dead. Uh, and all of this having culminating in sort of a complicated battle that at the end ends up in a contentious interview with the treasure hunter both having to begrudgingly be grateful that they were saved from death by the characters, and two, really trying to resist giving them as much information as they can. So since I kind of have the end here in mind, why don't we go ahead and start there? Now, on Monday, Jonathan Frost, one of our regular contributors, gave me a great idea for our kind of beefy villain at the end here, and that was to take an Azure Sentinel and swap the fire damage for lightning damage and make them more of a storm sentinel, more in line with Ovander, our elemental villain. So I think that's a good place to start. So let's go ahead and um, uh, let's go ahead and start outlining our encounter, and then we can kind of get into some of the details of that encounter and kind of what is going on and what the elementals and the undead here are all about. So we're going to say encounter, and we're going to say one. I'm going to bold this too. Ooh, wrong button. One Azure Sentinel. Sentinel. Swap fire damage / immunity for lightning. And that's just the note we're going to make to ourselves here. And that's one simple, easy change that we can put in here. But that's not enough for what we need. So we have a couple options that we can pull in from our creature bank here because we're looking at about an 800 XP budget here, thereabout. And our Sentinel is a 450, so we're looking to spend anywhere between 350 to 400, maybe even 300 to 400 in terms of putting the creatures here. So we could go with either a whole host of undead, skeletons and zombies and that kind of deal, but that's going to become a lot, and that's going to really make and break the kind of the action economy here because we'd be looking at, what, 8 skeletons for a 400 XP budget there. Um, or 8 zombies. So we could do something like that, but that's a fair amount to cram in there. So maybe we want to do that. Maybe we don't. Maybe we want to go with something like Magmans, and again swap their fire damage to lightning damage, or do one of the varieties of methods that are out there. Let's think about that for a second. Looks like we've got some comments in the chat already. So, aesthetically, from Jonathan Frost, we have aesthetically, the dungeon should have an ornamental feel thanks to the gargoyles. If magmen and fire methods are a threat, then there needs to be a pool of magma or a fiery pit. Undead imply a grave or tomb. And then he also mentions that gargoyles could be statuary tomb guardians. Absolutely, they could. The gargoyles, we don't want to toss a ton of them in here because, again, this is a kind of a um, short adventure, and they are a relatively high CR comparatively. But we could make them a quickie little encounter at the very entrance, where we could have a gargoyle and maybe supported by a couple steam methods or something along those lines. In terms of a pool of lava, I think, and please feel free to give me your own thoughts on this. I think that since our elemental evil is more of a storm base, I mean, they've got a lot of they have control over pretty much all the elements, admittedly, but I think they got more of a storm based kind of feel to them. Um, I'm more I think I'm more likely to imagine there being some lightning based traps in a place like this, or something along those lines. Um, Maybe an airier feel an airy feel to this aesthetically. Now that you kind of mentioned leaning into the elementals, one thing we could do on this if we were looking for more air, lightning, stormy kind of elementals, is we could have deep pools of crashing seawater underneath, and we could have a lot of um, stone bridge like structures connecting various places within this adventure, making it kind of an elevated outpost, um, where a lot of this occurs as opposed to being down low. Um, that being said, I could certainly see the appeal of having it be a place where lava meets seawater, and creating steam and the actual creation of some earth there. Um, so I'm certainly open to some suggestions. So while you guys are thinking about that, why don't I go ahead and see what kind of methods we might be dealing with here if we decide we want to go that route, um, and see what kind of fits. I've got on side screen open here I've got D&D Beyond. I'm searching the monsters. I'm not going to put that on screen just for intellectual property purposes here, but you can follow along by going to D&D Beyond and searching method. All right, so let's see. Ice methods don't really work for what we're looking for here. Dust methods, probably not. I could use them in other places. Magma methods would be if we decide that we want to stick with fire on this. And if we do that, then we don't need to swap out the Azure Sentinels damage type. We could really just stick to kind of fiery elemental kind of stuff if we wanted to do that. Let's see here. I had kind of thought maybe some steam elementals or some steam methods might be kind of cool because we could reskin them as spray methods. So they're kind of that stormy spray from the crash of the water, if you will. But they're going to be a 1/4, which means that they're a 500. I'm sorry, a 50. Wrong order of magnitude. A 50 XP creature there, which means that they're probably better suited to one of our lower level encounters, either at the entry or the setback or what have you. So I think that brings us to a place where if we want to kind of stick to our simple list here, and I don't see any reason not to at this juncture, since again, this is a small, self contained investigative area. Um, I think that boils us down to either reskinning Magman so that they're more in line with kind of the storm elemental thing that we've got going on here. Keeping the Magman themselves so they're more in line with kind of a fiery, um, lava meets ocean kind of thing here, or using some magma methods, which are going to be a 1/2 CR, and having using them again kind of as a pure sort of fire elemental kind of creature here. So what do we think, group? Do we want to do this as more of a fire meets water, or do we want to do this as more of a stormy elemental kind of place? What are our thoughts? Give everybody a few minutes to kind of chime in with their opinion. Fire and water, or storms? What should we be hitting here? Hmm. Personally, I'm leaning more towards the storms myself, because we haven't established any kind of uh, sort of fiery vibe here. But that doesn't mean that we can't put a volcano in the rim here somewhere, a mountain that is surged. This is an outpost on the rim of the giant inland sea that dominates this domain of dread. We got a lot of nautical vibes going on with this. Um, so we could go kind of either way. Seeing no arguments one way or the other in the chat, then I guess you know what we're going to do? Let's see here. We've got a post from Jonathan. Jonathan says Storm is thematic to the overall setting, and since the first major expedition to their search should be thematic. I tend to agree with that, Jonathan. We've got a great opportunity for world building here as they kind of go all over this domain of dread, looking for the various components here. And since this is early days, no reason to go off theme just yet. So let's make this stormy. So let's pop some Magman in here, and we can do between 3 and 4 Magman. I tend to make my encounters a little deadlier as opposed to a little light. There's kind of two schools of thought on that. The argument on the one hand is if you make them a little lighter, you're not risking there being a TPK. Really, you're not really you don't end up in a situation where the party is too threatened too regularly, and you really have to have a bunch of easy fights in a row for it to become kind of boring. One easy fight here or there, or one fight that's easier than expected here and there, doesn't really get noticed. The other hand of that is that if you have your fights that are a little bit stronger than you intended, you can make a few suboptimal choices for your NPCs. You can have people run away if you need to even things out. I think that since we are going to have the boon of the treasure hunter, that again it could be a bane of the treasure hunter in here. And actually, probably more likely a bane, um, or a little bit of both. Let's go ahead and err on the side of being a little bit low here, since this is also an investigative scene. Normally, I'd go a little bit high, but let's go a little bit low. So let's say that there are 3 Magman. And we're gonna, again, swap the fire damage and all of that for lightning. And I've taken a quick look at the stat block for Magman. It's a pretty easy change to make here. I mean, their abilities really lend themselves to elemental energy here. So it's easy enough as just changing the energy type. There isn't a lot of abilities on there that we would have to mess with too much. The only thing I would say is their touch attack, where if the target is a creature or a flammable object that isn't being worn or carried, it starts burning. Um, lightning sets things on fire all the time. So we could keep that or we could ditch it. It's entirely up to you as you play. Um, I encourage you to keep it, add some chaos. All right, so let's see here. We're going to say one Azure Sentinel and three Magman guard this chamber, and we're not really sure what the chamber looks like yet. And we'll figure that out in a little bit, probably in another session here, if we do a little bit of sketching out for our 5-room dungeon here for a map. Guard this chamber against intruders. In addition, the characters, I'm going to say the PCs, encounter the, I'm going to say TK Treasure Hunter here. And we're going to put that, we need to give him a name. He's got to become a fully fledged NPC here shortly. Or she does, or they do. We don't need to pick a gender at the moment. But they need to become a fully rendered NPC here shortly. But they encounter the TK Treasure Hunter. And what kind of stat block should they be? We can look at some NPC kind of stuff. Let's see where a spy stacks up these days. Yeah, CR1. That's not bad. We could make them a spy. It would certainly make some of the social interaction afterward interesting. It would give them some bonus actions to cause some havoc because they've got skills like deception, insight, investigation, perception, sleight of hand, and stealth. Cunning actions like dash, disengage, and hide. Yeah, let's do that. Let's make them a spy. And that gives us stuff to play with. I should say, arrives at the same time as the characters, as the PCs. I'm getting ahead of myself with the sentences here. In addition, the PCs encounter the TK Treasure Hunter Spy. Here, let's say TK Treasure Hunter arrives at the same time as the PCs. TK Treasure Hunter functions as a trickster, both aiding and opposing. That's the word I was looking for. The PCs in combat. Such that the elementals are defeated, but the PCs don't fare exceptionally well. So add a little chaos in there. We'll get a little chaos going. All right. So we got a good counter going there. Let's think about our entry and our setback. Again, we can keep this pretty simple. I don't think we need to really break too many brain cells or burn too many brain cells on this one here. I don't think there's anything wrong with making some of these combat encounters, um, as opposed to getting too overly creative with some of the stuff. This is one of the first kind of dungeons that the characters will encounter in this domain of dread. So let's, unless of course you guys have a particularly exciting idea, please feel free to jump in if you do. So in the meantime, let me go ahead and go to the new Dungeon Master's Guide. And let's see what kind of budget we've got going on here for this. If we're going to make these combat encounters, then the entry should be easy or should be a low difficulty, as the new nomenclature is. And the setback should be a moderate difficulty, I think. So let's make some XP budget. So XP budget, and that is second level characters. So we're looking at 100. So 400 is our XP budget for a low difficulty encounter. Difficulty and XP budget for a medium difficulty encounter, a moderate difficulty encounter. We're looking at 600. Makes sense. Smack dab in the middle. Difficulty. Cool. All right. So we can put we could actually do a single gargoyle in the entry if we wanted to, or we can make gargoyles a setback and arm them. I like the idea of there being gargoyles in here, especially because if we're kind of doing this as sort of a stormy air and water elemental kind of place, with a lot of height and wind-swept parapets and bridges and what have you, and that's kind of where it's starting to grow in my mind. Having some elementals that can fly would be kind of cool, I think. And so maybe the setback is we have a gargoyle who is going to be our CR2, so they're going to be a 450. Let's say one gargoyle, and so it looks like we're at 1500, so we can toss in maybe 3 mephits if we wanted to do that. If we wanted to toss in some lower level mephits to assist the gargoyle to keep the elemental, maybe we want to toss in some of the undead that kind of rise up here. Maybe they've got an elemental charge to them as well, just from the reskinning. I kind of, I don't want to do just elementals as we do this, simply because I think when you have just sort of one type of creature in a place, it begins to feel kind of formulaic. And so when we kind of mix some of these here, we add a little bit of excitement, a little pinch of flavor. Let's see here. Jonathan says the puzzle might be a hazard or trap that needs to be defeated. Yeah, I 100% agree. Hazards have XP value, I believe. They absolutely can if you do this. And we can assign an XP value to that if we'd like. We don't necessarily need to, but we can. And we probably will, just to kind of keep in line here and show how it can be done relatively easily. But that, looking at our time, is going to be a problem for next Monday. So real quick before we wrap up here, I want to do kind of a quick little shameless self-plug here. One, thank everybody for joining me. But two, I would like to remind you all that outside of doing this stream, I am also a professional DM on startplaying.games. So if you're ever looking to get some time as a player, as opposed to a game master or a dungeon master. Um, Hop over to startplaying.games. There's a whole bunch of stuff over there. And if you want to see if I'm actually any good at this, or if I'm just completely making it up as I go along, you can come check out some of my games. I just posted a whole slew of campaigns and some one shots. And these one shots are ones that I've actually written myself. And so they use the same methodologies that I'm teaching here. I use the same kind of process to do them. And so I've got two up at the moment, and I'll have some more coming. But I've got one that's a heist style adventure and one that's more of a Celtic horror one shot. Both are a lot of fun. I've gotten a lot of great reviews. In fact, a whole bunch of 5-star reviews off of each of these. So if you're interested in playing with me and having some time as a player, come check those out. That being said, thank you so much for your time. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. All that kind of stuff helps me stay motivated to keep doing this and really helps me stay inspired and help the channel grow overall. Um, Thank you so much again for your input and your attention. If you want to check out the next episode of this, where it's going to be this coming Monday, so that'll be the 24th of February if you're watching this in real time. And on that one, we do a full hour. We'll also continue on Wednesday the 26th, and we'll do another half-hour little shorty episode. Um, Thank you all again. And Jonathan, good stream. Thanks. Yes, thank you, Jonathan. I really appreciate your input all the time. You're such a stalwart supporter. Thank you for being here. Um, all right. Well, thank you, everybody. And I will see you next time.